Welcome to the GECA Podcast, powered by the Global Equity Crowdfunding Alliance. Dive into the realm of borderless equity crowdfunding, where we bring the world's top experts and industry leaders directly to you, discussing innovations that are redrawing the boundaries of finance. Ready to expand your horizons? Here's your host, Andy Field.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the GECA Podcast, the voice of global equity crowdfunding. I'm Andy Field, steering committee lead of the Global Equity Crowdfunding Alliance, where we speak with the leading voices who are shaping the future of capital raising across borders. Now, as crowdfunding continues to evolve, we're exploring what it takes to run successful campaigns globally and what founders, platforms, investors, and experts need to know to really thrive in this expanding ecosystem. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by someone who's been at the very heart of European equity crowdfunding for more than a decade now. My guest is Giancarlo Vergine, founder and managing partner of Over Ventures and one of the most experienced practitioners in the European crowdfunding ecosystem. Now, over the years, Giancarlo has worked on more than 200 equity crowdfunding campaigns, helping startups and SMEs raise over 100 million euros across Italy, the UK, and across wider Europe. He's also played a pivotal role in shaping the Italian market, including during his time as head of deal flow at Crowdfund helping position Italy as one of Europe's leading equity crowdfunding jurisdictions and supporting some of the earliest cross-border campaigns following the introduction of the ECSP regulation. Now, beyond platform operations, Giancarlo is also the creator of the European equity crowdfunding landscape, which is one of the most comprehensive market intelligence initiatives in the sector, tracking thousands of startups and billions of euros in activity across Europe. Now, at GECA, we talk a lot about the need to move from fragmented national markets to coordinated international frameworks. And Giancarlo's work really sits nicely exactly at that intersection, where regulation, platforms, data, and collaboration can meet. And in this conversation, we're going to explore what's working, what still isn't working, and what needs to change if Europe is really serious about building a truly integrated equity crowdfunding market. Giancarlo, it's great to have you with us, not just on this podcast, but as one of the latest members of the GECA steering committee. So welcome.
Thank you, Andy, for having me here and for having me in the steering committee at GECA. I really appreciate this new role, and I like to work with all of you guys from all over the world in this industry that is very, very interesting for me, but not also for me, and we will see why.
Absolutely, and it's a pleasure having you on board, actually. And so let's start with the most obvious question, I suppose. So you've been deeply involved. I mentioned you've been deeply involved in the European equity crowdfunding market and ecosystem for over a decade. How would you describe what it is that you do?
Yeah, sure. So at the simplest level, we help companies raise capital through the equity crowdfunding in a very wise way to understand it. So in practice, what we really do is design, execute, and design, plan, and execute community capital and equity crowdfunding raise, starting from the strategies and going through all the other stuff. Over the last decade, as you already mentioned, with first with crowdfunding and then with Over Ventures, I've worked across platforms, jurisdictions, and investor bases in order to help, from one side, help founders and entrepreneurs leveraging the crowdfunding as a mean to raise money and at the same time to make their company growing faster. Yeah. On the other end, helping platforms to have a great deal flow and to grow the market in a organically, but also in a faster way.
Yep. Okay. Well, yeah, that all makes sense. But what was it that first pulled you into crowdfunding as very much a long-term focus rather than just a passing trend? A sort of a trend where companies were looking to raise money through different measures, if you like. What made you realize that this was a long-term project?
Yeah, from my perspective, first of all, the access that can give to companies to retail investors, but also at the same time where we have community-based companies, also to their customers to make them to convert them from customers to shareholders.
Yeah.
So first of all, I think that crowdfunding has the main role to change who get participating in the innovation, not only the institutional investors, the venture capital, the private equity, but also the retail investor. Everyone would like to invest small tickets to become part, to own a piece of a scale up that would become a unicorn, like, for example, Revolut in the UK in the past years. Or at the same time, also other companies that will not become unicorns, but they can become great companies. And for example, there are several people that are very fan of a specific company like that, and they would like to also to own own a piece of that company. From another perspective, I think that crowdfunding is not a niche. It's at the moment, it's an infrastructure that actually need more an organic way, a systemic way to be executed, to be managed. And GECA is doing, in his role, is doing something to improve that. Because, for example, in the US, they are leveraging better this tool at the moment than in Europe. And so I think that this is another perspective, trying to make a one systemic capital market that can be a very precious resource for companies that would like to leverage it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one of the things that GECA is trying to do, you're absolutely right, is to bring the different jurisdictions together and learn from the experiences that they've all had, because there'll be so many different perspectives and different ways of doing things. And those learnings are really important. Now, you've worked on, I mentioned right at the beginning, you've worked on more than 200 campaigns, right?
Yeah.
And raising over 100 million euros for those businesses. So have you seen any patterns that have emerged over time? And I suppose in asking that, I'm kind of saying, what do you think separates campaigns that succeed from those that perhaps struggle a little?
Yeah, first of all, the entrepreneur has to understand that crowdfunding or a community funding campaign is not properly something very automatic. So I put the campaign, my proposition on a portal, and I receive automatically the money because the people would like to invest because I'm very cool and so on. You have to put your face in front. So you have to fundraise, and this is a mean to speed up the fundraiser time, lead time, no? And so, usually it depends on ecosystem. But for example, if you stay in the United States, that is a very mature market. Probably if you would like to raise money from private, you don't take a lot of time, few months, if you know. But in the past, if I remember, for example, the stories of Airbnb, that they took more than 6-9 months to raise their pre-seed, and now they are what they are. I think that the common pattern is to use the crowdfunding as the booster of the fundraising, not as the only mean of the fundraising. And that means that the founders has to put their self in skin in the game, and they should prepare the fundraise, the strategy in advance. I suggest 6 months in advance. So I plan to fundraise, I plan to leverage the crowdfunding, and I plan all the activities before get in contact with the platforms or with the potential lead investors. And the second of all, I think that they don't have to understand crowdfunding as a fundraising project, but a company milestone. So I would like to bring on board my community. That means I raise money, but at the same time, I try to reduce the churn rate, to increase the loyalty, to create ambassadors. So the founders that put plan the crowdfunding activities and the crowdfunding raises in this way. So using the crowdfunding as the mean of the booster, they succeeded. At the moment, as another adding point, of course, you should have also impact stuff in your proposition. So I'm a company that have impact in my vision. So impact, it means everything, but for example, impact for the environment, impact for the people that work with us, impact in our business proposition, and so on.
Yeah. Okay. And actually, just echoing on from some of the conversations that I've had with other people recently, I guess engaging that that crowd, if you like, there's going to be a lot of involvement in trying to build that trust layer, making sure the communication is right with the shareholders, with the people who've invested, and that kind of thing. How important do you think that trust layer is? Just to sort of follow on from other conversations I've had, really.
Yeah, I think that the trust layer, if I understood your question, so I think that, of course, using crowdfunding as a trust layer for the market, not only for your customers or the new shareholders, but also for the market, because if, for example, if you raise money from angels in a pre-seed round and it is offline, nobody is aware of what you do, just the angels that invested. But if you do it online, publicly, on a platform that make a due diligence, technical, and also about your business and so on, so they check all the compliance stuff. Of course, it's better for a small investor to invest through the crowdfunding than offline, with direct investment, with direct relations with the founders. So the trust, I think it's the trust layer is bi-directionary. From one side is for the due diligence and the selection part that the platform do. And on the other end, also because if I raise with the crowdfunding and it's clear my proposition, it's clear what I would like to do, where I would like to spend the money, which is my pre-money evaluation. So in the next rounds, for sure, also the venture capitalists or other angels, family office can rely on that information and rely on what you put there.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. I don't think we've touched on that before. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. Okay, so let's just focus a little bit on Italy, which has obviously been your main, the main sort of mainstay of your career so far. Italy's probably considered one of Europe's largest equity crowdfunding markets. I think that would be fair to say. What do you think it got right?
I think that Italy, until few years ago, has not a real venture capital market, because there were very few venture capital funds that were investing mostly from Series A up and up. So now the venture capital is growing, so there are more venture capital, there are more investors coming in Italy from other countries, for example, UK, US, and Israel, and so on, that would like to invest in Italian startups. So, but until 3-4 years ago, crowdfunding was one of the main place where raise money for pre-seed and seed companies, because there were equity gap. We call it as equity gap. So lack of money in that stages. And so I go on crowdfunding because I can raise money from more people, few tickets, small tickets, from an amount, a big amount of people. Now market is evolving. Italy as a venture capital country is one of the probably the fastest ecosystem in Europe at the moment. Of course, the numbers are very low if you compare them with the UK or France or Germany, because in 2025 in Italy were raised 1.7 billion of euro for venture capital. I think that Italy is unique also because it combines strong retail participation with now there is also an increasing of founder skills, entrepreneurial skills, and so also the SMBs that are very typical in Italy are trying to leverage crowdfunding instead of traditional financial sources, and so that is another leverage that bring Italy as the second at the moment country after France. We are not considering UK because we are talking about, in our report we speak about EU,
the EU.
so ECSP. But if we consider UK is the third country, so it's not bad.
Sure. And I suppose since ECSP has come into force, so post that, you've been involved in some of the first Italian cross-border campaigns. Can you sort of talk a little bit about what worked there and what proved to be a little harder than expected? And then I suppose carrying on from that, the impact of ECSP. Has ECSP delivered what the industry hoped it would in terms of sort of harmonizing the regulatory framework across the EU?
Yeah, I think that we are still in a transitional part of the process because it started at the end of 2023. 2024 was an year for Italy, in Europe, and other countries that started at the end of 2023. Because, for example, Spain was one of the first country that started with this regulation, and so it's in a better position in terms of adoption. ECSP, I think that is going in the way where all the operators were expecting at the very beginning. But at the moment, we have few cross-border deals, but it's why retail investors from Italy are not very used to invest in platforms outside Italy. So that is the point. Platforms are working a lot. For example, the leaders of the market that are Crowdcube, Republic, that are based in the UK, but we know they have the license in Europe. They are working a lot to increase education and advocacy on their technology, on their services, and also on the mean, also for the retail investors, making partnership with Club of Angels and other entities that would facilitate the adoption or the investing in early stage startups. And what I can see is that ECSP is very useful, I think, for Europe, and is going to be also the main reason why the market can bring bigger player that can operate in all the countries instead of now that is very fragmented. And so, for example, we have, I don't know, 10 platforms in Italy, 10 platforms in France, 10 platforms in Spain. And it's very, if you invest in startups and you have to, and you would like to, I'm Italian, I would like to invest in a French company, I have to go in another portal. You should make several subscriptions, several
It's difficult for the investor. The experience is difficult.
Yeah, the experience at the moment is not is still very difficult, and the deal flow of the platforms it's not yet complete. So if you go on Republic on Crowdcube, okay, you can find European opportunities, but at the moment, for example, there aren't Italian companies. But in the future, I think that the top players, not only these two that I mentioned, but for example, also Investor or other that are more vertical on specific topics. For example, Capital Cell, that is very interesting portal based in Spain, but operates all over Europe, and they are vertical in biotech. So if you go there, you can find at the moment, for example, a company from UK, a company from Spain, a company from France. So for me, that I'm an investor, I prefer to have more choices in different countries than just a few countries, because
Yeah.
I think that now that is the concern about the experience for the investor.
Yeah, so investor choice is really important, but they have to be able to invest in a relatively easy manner. It needs to be smooth. And from what you're saying as well, the education, ECSPR kind of allows for this to start happening, but actually there needs to be a certain level of education around investors to sort of encourage them to make those steps and ask for these investment opportunities in other countries. So okay, that's really interesting. So you created the European equity crowdfunding landscape. What problems were you trying to solve when you were doing that?
First of all, we would like to make aware the venture capital market and the operators of the private markets in general about the size and the trends and the potentials of the crowdfunding, because crowdfunding is a market that started more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In UK, probably in 2010.
Yeah.
Something like that. So more than 15 years. In Italy, started in 2015. So it's something that who worked in these environments, private markets or private equity and venture capital, have heard about it. But it's not the equity crowdfunding as we experience it and we saw about in the last years isn't sexy anymore for that kind of operators, because there were some interesting exits, some interesting investments that became millionaire, for example Revolut, Monzo,
Yep.
or but a lot of startups, a lot of companies that raised through the crowdfunding didn't succeed, as is it normal in the venture capital. But
Absolutely.
The retail investors are not very used on this way to invest and lose money, this level of risk. So what we decided is to create this pan-European aggregate market research to show all the operators, both entrepreneurs, operators, investors, that this market is alive.
Yes.
Is changing, is evolving, but is not dying. And it has a lot of potential that you can take advantage.
And putting some numbers behind that potential. We often talk about the potential of the market. Yeah.
Yeah, because for example, if this year Italy is not performing very, very well, but there is France that is overperforming, you can leverage this market, because people is not abandoning this way to invest or to raise money. They don't like probably the models, they don't like the offering. But if you find the right what the investor wants, and at the same time you guarantee an experience to entrepreneurs to easily raise money and try to scale without with also the venture capital investors. So we are trying to put the crowdfunding in the ecosystem, trying to also create collaboration with venture capital. So for example, on the 19th, probably we will talk about it later, but on the 19th here in Milan, we will launch the European Community Capital Landscape 2025. And at the moment, there are more than 100 people registered, and the 25% are venture capitalists, for example. And it's a good way, because we are doing it with the Italian Tech Alliance, that is the Italian Venture Capital Association, because we think that venture capital is not alternative to crowdfunding.
Sure.
It's complementary. Yes. So that's why we are doing this.
Yeah, that again, that speaks volumes to what we talk about all the time in GECA, which is that collaboration piece. It's very important that we collaborate across all levels. So really, what you're doing is the problem you're trying to solve. Going back to my original question, is that it's kind of standing up for the industry and proving to the world that this industry is there. It's alive and well, and can prosper, and has so much untapped potential. And you're putting some values across that as well. And I suppose, have you found so far across the billions of euros worth of deals and the thousands of startups that the European market is thriving? I'm assuming it does give a positive message.
Yeah, regarding the comparison between 2024 and 2025, it is growing, not
Yep.
growing it is growing double digit, but it's not growing in an exponential way at the moment. But because the market is changing, there are more private deals that are not public, and so we cannot take the data. Platforms are changing their business model, but new players are coming in, are joining the market. So I think that it is a market that would increase the size of deals and also the amount raised. And it is not very common. Probably UK, yes, but for example, in Italy or in France, that one fund deploy, I don't know, 50, 60, 70, 80 million in 1 year, no?
Yeah.
But with the crowdfunding, if you assume that crowdfunding is a fund that invests in a certain kind of companies, you can see that, for example, France is now we don't have the final numbers because we have to fine tune
Sure.
all the calculations. But for example, if I remember well, France is almost 100 million deployed just in venture capital equity crowdfunding. So I mean SMBs and startups. We are not considering real estate. We are not considering lending. And so 100 million is not bad,
No, that's right. Okay, so I suppose I should ask you. You're a fairly recent member of the GECA steering committee, which we're very grateful to have you on board. And it's great that you're part of an ever-expanding team we've got here. Because we talk about borderless equity crowdfunding, what does that actually mean to you in practical terms? And then again, as a follow-up to that, why did GECA resonate with you so much? And what role do you think GECA can play in Europe and worldwide, actually?
I think that it means shared standards, interoperable data, and coordinated investor access.
Yeah,
I think that means, but at the moment, it's not like that. And so I think it is very needed the help of GECA and other local associations that work together in synergy also with other entities in venture capital and tech ecosystem in order to facilitate this.
Yes.
Because at the moment, as we already mentioned, for example, in the United States, you have one language and you have, one regulation like in Europe, but the cultural barriers are not similar to the European one.
Yeah.
There are cultural barriers, but they are one single country, no?
Yeah.
In Europe, we are 27 countries with and plus the UK, sorry, United Kingdom, 28. So several languages, several cultural behaviors, and so on and so forth. But now we have the regulation, but we have to start to share the standards, share the data, coordinate. I don't know the activities, the process, because there can be, of course, in all the great markets lives on competition, but on the other end, the best markets live on cooperation
and collaboration. Yeah.
Collaboration.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. I'm glad you said all of that, because I completely agree with everything that you're saying there. If we sort of move forward 5 years, What needs to change for Europe to have a genuinely integrated crowdfunding market? I know you've touched upon it there with, the fact is we need to talk more, we need to share more information, we need to share best practice, we need to come to some kind of way in which the different regulatory regimes can talk to each other, they can understand each other, they can be interoperable, as you mentioned earlier. But is there anything else that you think it might be an attitude? What do you think needs to change for Europe to have a genuinely integrated crowdfunding?
I think that we need more exit, but it is in common with the venture capital, because in Europe we don't have the big tech we have in the United States. But I think that we can, if we work together as a European ecosystem, we can work also on the all the journey of a startup or all the journey of a small company. So start, be funded, grow, and exit to be to make the investors happy. So we need more success stories, and to do that, it is needed to have a fertile field and a cooperation and collaboration between operators, between countries, and so on. We need also we need also repeatable systems. So what I mean that we have to find the best way, and we are trying to do it working also with platforms.
Yeah.
Because if we find how the machine has to work for cross-border raises, for an investor to invest in multiple countries, and why not receive also tax benefits, not also if they invest in its proper country, but also in other countries. I think that it can be scalable, it can be scaled. Sorry, the market and the system, and so we can reach the target of GECA, 1 trillion, euro or dollar, I don't remember. Within the end of 2030, if I remember.
Yes, that's absolutely right. What do you think the biggest missed opportunity will be if we don't get the collaboration bit right?
The missed opportunity is that at the moment it's there. There is a big potential opportunity. Companies are not all VC bankable, are not all bank bankable. They need money to grow, and so there is this need, and somebody has to fill and cover this need with the best offer. And if we don't do it in the right way, we can miss that billion of euro in financing the next economy of Europe, because crowdfunding it's a mirror also of the venture capital, because venture capital, the big LPs, limited partners, high net worth individuals, institutions, banks, and so on, invest in venture funds to invest in the real economy. But also as a small retail investor, if we would like to participate in the next big thing in Europe, in the next companies in Europe, we have to invest and to help this economy to move forward, because the other continents, but I know GECA is a global association. At the moment I'm in the Europe team, because I'm European, I'm Italian, but I hope also that crowdfunding can become the standard, one of the standard to raise money and to be backed by investors all over the world, because it's the easiest thing. You access a portal, you put your proposition, the portal check you're okay, and small retail investor, everyone can invest in you, and it's amazing. So increase the liquidity of this in this. Also.
And that's the risk, that we don't get that if we don't get the collaboration right. And that's actually a really good message for people, platform operators, policymakers, or anyone listening to this to take away. Giancarlo, we're coming to the end of the chat now. It's been great talking to you. If there's where can people follow your work or learn more about EECL and Overventures, and also about the events that you're holding starting on the 19th of February. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit active on LinkedIn, so you can follow me
Yep.
and connect me
And we'll put
if
links.
you want.
We'll put links to on the notes
Yeah,
for that.
thank
Yep.
you. And also, I write a newsletter that it is at the moment monthly, but is gonna be more frequent in the next months. It is called the snowball effect. That is the effect that usually is the effect the successful crowdfunding campaign
Yep.
starts trigger when they succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone who's interested in the European crowdfunding scene should subscribe to that newsletter. And again, we'll put the link in the notes for that. Giancarlo, thank you so much for such a thoughtful, insightful conversation. Your experience across the platforms, the markets, the data really highlights how far European equity crowdfunding has come and how much potential actually is what we've talked about remains untapped. And what comes through really clearly, I think, is that the next phase of growth won't be driven by isolated platforms or national success stories, but it's going to be collaboration, shared infrastructures, and a willingness to actually think beyond borders. So thank you again, Giancarlo, for that. That was a really great conversation.
Thank you,
And
Andy. Thank you again.
thank you very much. That's exactly the challenge GECA exists to help address. And conversations like this are exactly why we exist. To bring together diverse global perspectives, challenge fragmented thinking, and help shape a more connected and inclusive equity crowdfunding system. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. Stay with us for future episodes as we continue to explore the people, the policies, and platforms that are unlocking crowdfunding without borders. Don't forget to follow GECA for more conversations with the people shaping the future of global equity crowdfunding. And visit our website, thegeca.org, to learn more about our mission, our growing supporter base of equity crowdfunding ecosystem stakeholders, and just learn how you can get involved. So until the next time, see you soon.
Bye.